Alright guys, it's Scrappy again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL officially confirmed the full map set going into the Major 1 qualifiers last night, and major questions being raised as to whether they have made the right decisions. No raid in for Hardpoint and Overload. That has certainly turned some heads. Some of the pros are very happy about some other maps a few days ago. Those maps in large part have not made it into the map pool. Are we in a decent spot, or do serious changes still need to be made in the near future? There are big updates coming in just a few days time. More maps are in the game, but apparently they won't make any changes to this until at least February. Why? I don't know. Very much to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. As always, plenty to get into. Today, I'm pretty sure, is the day where Gentlemates are going to confirm everything. They tease their jersey. They tease their logo. Interesting logo, but yeah, Los Angeles Gorillas mates, they are the question mark Gentlemates. They will in the near future probably become something else. We think they're probably going to confirm their team today. It's pretty funny really how they ended up running all of these tournaments over the last few days as August, but everyone kind of knows what is going on there. There was another tournament that went down last night, a $50,000 pro mod tourney, so tons of tourneys to start things off. I think K-Sun has said over the last couple of days he's looking to run something as well in the near future, so I think we've got more tournaments on the way, and as we're going to discuss in a couple of minutes when it comes to the CDL map set, the qualifiers begin on the 5th of December, which isn't really all that far away. But Formal, they got the job done. His team, he actually dominated the finals here, clutching a nice little round to help them get over the line. These were the KDs in that final. Formal, effectively Formal's team versus Illy's team were probably the most notable names here, and yeah, Formal with a 1.15. He hasn't lost it just yet, baby. So I don't know. Formal's going to come back. Is he going to compete? He looks like he's having a good time on Black Ops 7. I don't think that's going to be enough for Formal to say, okay, I'm going to run it up in challenges this year. But we know Formal loves competing, right? Like, and certainly these kickoff tournaments, he's having a great time, it seems, right now. But let's talk about this map set and where we go from here, because CDC Intel said yesterday that rumor had it Raid Hardpoint is out of the map pool. Some pros want to trial Blackheart instead, and there will be more trials once the new maps come around in Season 1. He says, obviously, there will be some more trials, but, well, maybe not, as we'll discuss in a second. Now, it's worth noting, Slasher said the other day, and some pros have agreed, that Raid is not in the best spot right now. Not to say that it couldn't be, but there are spawns, certainly for P3, that, you know, aren't great, the basketball hill and all that. There's a lot of talk that, you know, in the way that the spawns currently work on Raid, it's not optimal. There are probably better maps in the game right now. Is it still Raid? Yes. Do I mind having these old school throwback maps only in for a couple of modes, or just 1 or 2 modes? No, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, and having Raid just in as it currently is for Search and Destroy, I think is also okay. I would want Raid in for all the modes probably anyway if we didn't have any other considerations and any other options, but we do at least have some other solid maps in the game to make this a conversation. I think the reason why it's been surprising to many is that Blackheart is coming in instead. Of course, a map that did appear in the beta. For 4v4, a map that probably, you know, 6v6 is a bit of chaotic. In 4v4, maybe they think it can work. It's pretty small. I don't love it. I think the idea of it just going straight in for Raid is actually very interesting, because I don't really think the players have done much trialing on Blackheart, right? It's not been in the map pools they've played over the last few days. We've seen the Forge get played briefly and then kind of cut out of things. Of course, we've seen Cortex get played a fair bit. That now seems to be out of the picture as well. So Blackheart's kind of come out of nowhere. I don't know if the pros really know if it's that good or not. And it's straight into the map pool. So the CDL confirmed it yesterday. The wait is over. Here are the official maps and modes for 2026. Now, as we go through these, I'll just quickly mention the first thing that really annoyed me about this graphic is they were so close to making it beautifully aesthetic, because you've got Blackheart Hardpoint, you've then got Colossus Hardpoint, Colossus Search, so a nice diagonal, you've got Den Hardpoint Search and Overload, another beautiful diagonal, you've got Exposure, Exposure, Exposure on all the game modes, And then you've got 3 scars. I mean, like, it couldn't be lined up any better to make that another 3 diagonal of scar, right? It would be beautiful. And then you'd have raid at the bottom. But for some reason, the graphic designer did it the other way around, even though it's screaming out to be done. Whatever. That annoyed me straight off the bat. But let's talk about where we are from here, right? Because as I've said, we've got 3 maps that are across all of the different game modes. They are, for some reason, not in a beautiful line, but whatever. Den, Exposure, and Scar, they'll be played everywhere. Now, Den, 100% no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Probably the best map in the game. Certainly the best original map they've put into the game. I think it plays well in hardpoint. It's good fun in search. One of the better overload maps as well. Now, Exposure is considered to be pretty good for overload. It is a map that the pros tend to like. It's not, you know, I don't think it's great. And I think in due course, we probably will see Exposure leave for at least one of the game modes when other maps do eventually come in. I think for overload, Exposure does make a bit of sense. The other game modes, you know, I'm kind of neither here nor there with it, really. Scar is also probably the other best map. So I think Den and Scar, no-brainers really to be in the pool. Now, Colossus is interesting, not viable for overload. It's, you know, had its moments, right? I mean, Kremp Lossus dropped 53 on it the other day against FaZe, so I'm down to see that in at least for hardpoint. I think for Search and Destroy it's okay, but again, I think Colossus is a map, kind of like Exposure, that will be on the borderline. Now, it is interesting, of course, that Raid is not in for hardpoint or for overload. It's only going to be a Search and Destroy map for now, and arguably Search is what, well, not plays the most different on it, but with the snipers in play and with the wall jumping, especially around Zigzag, it creates many different options that didn't used to be there for Raid. So I think it is a different map than it used to be when it was back in Cold War, back in Black Ops 2. But I still think that having Raid in the pool is a no-brainer. Now, it is interesting that there's no Express, right? Because, yeah, I know we've played Express a million times, but we know that Express is a very viable Search and Destroy map. It came back in Cold War effectively, but it's not in the pool as it stands. Could, you know, would it be better for Search than, for example, a Colossus or an Exposure? Look, I don't mind having the new maps in. I think that's okay, but we've got to be willing in the relatively near future to switch things up, which, well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. I think the Blackheart one is kind of out of left field still, right, in terms of hardpoint, because they've not really scrimmed that map. They may have trialed it for a couple of days, but the CDL have said, and we'll see what they have to say on it in a second, this is the map pool, this is the map that's in, and this is what we're playing with until at least the end of Major 1 at the end of January, which is quite a long time away, especially with not much preparation and trialing time for these maps. Now, again, I think the CDL should be making the decisions when it comes to what the map set is. I don't think the pros should have too much of a say. And that, it seems, is where we're going to be again. These are the restricted items. I still think it's a shame that the marksman rifles are banned. The M8A1 actually could be a good feature of this game, but it is what it is. And if we scroll to the right, you'll find, interestingly enough, under field upgrades, we don't have the active camo, right? So technically that is allowed right now. That may be an error. I also think that the Tomahawk should never be banned, because, like, if someone uses a Tomahawk and gets a kill with it, do we not want to see that? Like, why are we banning the Tomahawk as a lethal? They're never going to use it anyway. So why ban it? And even if they did ban it, then, like, even if they did allow it, it would create good moments, right? I mean, you might see a dominant force team just taking the piss out of a terrible team by running the Tomahawks in Surge. So we ban it? Like, why, right? That annoys me. So anyway, these are the things that are banned in the various modes, the wild cards, etc., etc. The kill streaks, a lot of those are banned. Pretty much every single thing is banned here. So yeah, quite the rule set in terms of restricted items. Probably the active camera will be added to this in due course, or the pros have some sort of other ideas. But it did see, like, VOs actually from Gentlemates the other day said get Blackheart hardpoint in the rotation. That map plays great. And well, he then says ask and you shall receive. So that's a decision that has been made. Just if you guys aren't familiar with this Blackheart map, this is what it is. We did see a little bit of work on it put in last night. Here's Huke with a couple of highlight plays. It's going to be a fun one to watch, that's for sure, with all the wall bouncing and everything. And to be fair, it seems like it plays okay. there's a little bit of frequency going on here. There's a little bit of other maps as well. So we'll see, right? But it was just a bit of a surprise to see Blackheart's Hardpoint kind of come out of nowhere when it comes down to this map pool. So Spinner Spence kind of representing the league in this discussion, because there was some talk about Cortex, right? Dashy, big fan of Cortex, right? The other day, OpTic was slamming in scrims on Cortex. And look, I think it was a pretty good map. Dashy was also a big fan of Retrieval for Search and Destroy. Neither of those maps are in the pool, right? So I'm not sure that Dashy's going to be too happy about that. I don't think that OpTic will especially mind. They're going to be good, probably whatever the map rotation is at the moment. But Dashy was a big fan of Cortex. That's not even made it in the end. It's kind of like the Biolab hunted crossover is what I'd call it. That map I think was okay, but that never made it in. So as Spinner Spence says, the testing was done on Cortex and Blackheart as well. Some of the combos we had with pros gives me belief that it'll play better than Raid's Hardpoint currently. Now, of course, that could change, and it's also worth noting that we do have plenty more maps around the corner, right? Season 1 is nearly here, and we have Fringe coming back in, which may play very, very well. Like, Fringe, great Black Ops 3 map. You know, I've been pushing for years to get Stronghold back in the game, so I'm going to keep pushing the Stronghold propaganda. But, look, if they're going to bring back some BO3 maps, I think they could play well on the movement in this game. Fringe is definitely one that should be considered. We've got, I mean, Standoffs coming back. We've got Meltdown coming back. Both of those, you know, certainly for Search and Destroy should be in consideration. Then there's other new maps they're bringing in. Toshin, by the way, a map that has shipped with the game. They are making the change for Season 1 where they're opening up the top of that like train that's crashed things. You can get up into the top building, and that's a change that many believe may actually make that map viable for competitive. So that's happening in a few days time, like right at the start of December. Before the CDL matches even begin, they're changing Toshin, they're adding Standoff, Fringe, Meltdown, and then they've got those other maps they're adding in, which are Fate and then Utopia. Utopia looks like a bit of a 6-star retreat crossover. That looks viable. So before the CDL begins, we will have a load of new maps in the game, and Spinner Spence says we'll be looking at maps after every major to see if we can continue to find more variety, and then he goes on to clarify that they will not be making any changes to the map pool until after Major 1, which to me is like, I don't really understand why, right? Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. The first thing I will say is that we only have 13 map mode combinations right now. They have been playing around on 6, even 7, and many of the fans would say, well, you know, why not just have Raid Hardpoint anyway? Why not just add in some of the other map mode combinations? Because, you know, why not? We've probably got the depth that we've not had over the last few years. The primary reason for this seems to be that it's too much for the pros to play, right? They need to practice more maps. Now, the best pro teams would probably say, well, yeah, maybe, but also it maybe adds to the skill gap because you've got to be better across more maps. You have to have more depth in your map pool. And as a result, what is it? An extra, if you added another Hardpoint map and another Search and Destroy map, even another Overload map, let's say we went 6-6-4. I mean, what, it's another 30 minutes for a scrim set, it's another 3 maps to play. You know, and they don't even scrim search a lot of the time anyway. Is it really that big of a deal? Probably not, but it does feel like this, I don't know exactly whether it is laziness on the pro side or whether it's just the CDL being somewhat stubborn, but I'm confused because there's 2 weekends of matches. So we play on the 5th through the 7th, and then the 12th through the 14th of December, whatever. Then the first matches back in January are on the 9th of January. So there's literally nearly 4 weeks, 3 weeks certainly, over Christmas and the New Year, where there are no CDL matches. The players will have time and presumably will be trialing some of those other maps, but yet they're not going to change anything until at least Major 1. So, look, all I'm saying is when that does happen after Major 1 and we do get some map pool changes, because I'm sure that we will, I hope that, you know, they potentially make quite sweeping ones, because, you know, this map pool could look very different. I would expect Den and Scar to stay for the long term. I think they're probably going to be in the pool all year. We'll see about that. But all the other maps, I think, could be swapped out, especially if Utopia is viable. Maybe Toshin becomes more viable as well. I don't know. We're in an okay position this year. It's definitely not a terrible map pool, and I think, you know, Zinni says, honestly, a pretty great maps at a kick off the year. It's better than we've had, but, you know, I'm hoping that as the year goes on, we make it as good as we possibly can, because there are going to be a ton of good options this year, and I'm hoping that they make regular changes so we can actually see that in action. But anyway, Rencore, among others, are just excited to get it underway, to be honest. And yeah, we're only a few days away now from the CDL officially kicking off. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.